Today's topic of discussion is clueless simps. Right now we are living in a time where simps are at an all-time high. We've got a bunch of guys who are getting emasculated on a day-to-day basis by their women, and they're getting completely disrespected. So in this video we're going to be discussing some key points in terms of why women are abusing men in today's time and how there's more simps now than any other time period. So first point is disrespect. Now I'm going to play this 10-second clip for you guys of a guy who has been working 16 plus hours in the day, and then when he's come home he's getting completely disrespected by his wife. So I'll play it now for you guys.
16 घंटा घर में दीजिएगा, 72 घंटा रेल को दीजिएगा, है ना? हाँ, पूरा दिन का घर का काम हम ही करते रहे। बोलिए, 72 घंटा के बाद आ रहे हैं। आगे।
Okay, so you guys are back now. You've had a watch of it. Now that guy there, he was working 16 plus hours, comes home and he's hearing that nagging old bag shouting at him and just completely disrespecting him. I mean, who wants to come home to that? Now, if you guys are men of value, working on your purpose, striving towards becoming the best versions of yourselves, you don't want to hear any of that. So when you are working on your purpose and you're trying your best each and every single day, that in and of itself is quite exhausting. And then when you come home, you ain't got no peace of mind, just pure drama. Who wants to come home to that? Now, unfortunately, there's a lot of simps in the world who are entertaining these women. They don't have no boundaries. So it works both ways. When a man and a woman have both got self-respect for themselves, they don't just let people disrespect them and let it slide. So with that guy, he's likely to be completely emasculated. So what's happened is right now he's at that point where he's just getting abuse on a day-to-day basis, and it doesn't really faze him now. Now for the viewers who are watching that, I mean, what sort of guy is going to be cool with that? Now if you guys look at, for example, mainstream media, I remember watching the TV show called The Simpsons. Now you've got Homer Simpson, who's the dad. He's treated as an idiot. And then you've got his wife Marge, who is wearing the pants in the relationship. And she's always nagging Homer to do this and do that. He's not good enough. And so on. This is where it starts off. It starts off with these TV shows, getting women to think that they are the leaders in their own households, that they are in charge. Who wants to come home to that? Somebody who's just constantly bickering. It ain't attractive at all, is it? Now you're going to get certain couples, right, who have arguments every now and then, disagreements. But there's a thin line between a disagreement and disrespect. These people here are just completely disrespected. And everyone knows it. So next point is ATM. Now, in today's time, we've got a bunch of guys who just love to be treated as ATM machines. They're thinking that as long as a woman gives me intimacy every now and then, I'm happy to get treated as a mug and an ATM machine. This is what the issue is in today's time. Guys ain't got no standards nowadays. They'd rather be treated as an ATM machine than to be single. What sort of guy is so desperate, so deprived, so insecure that he has to put his bank balance on his forehead to try and attract women? Try and tell a woman, oh, I'm earning X amount every month or every year. I'm earning 10k plus. That gives off insecure vibes. A woman sees that as, this guy here is an ATM machine. She ain't gonna have no respect for him, because he ain't got no self-respect for himself. So there's a difference between providing and protecting and being treated as a mug and an ATM machine. There's a big difference there. Because as a man, you're providing, you're protecting, you're doing all your duties, and you're getting respected for your position and your role in the relationship. Whereas a guy who's treated as an ATM machine, he just keeps on giving money, but he's getting disrespected in the process. So, next point is power. Now, there's a bunch of women in today's time who don't want anything else other than power. They treat certain guys as doormats. They like the role of being masculine, being assertive, being dominant. And they like the guy who's just like a submissive, subservient guy who's going to put her on the pedestal and treat her like a queen. She can just keep abusing him all day long and he'll still be there. Some of these guys, they don't even know that they have the ability to walk away. It don't register in their head. They're literally thinking, this is all I've got. This is the only option that I've got. Now, this is what the issue is. Guys have given so much power to women in today's time that they've just completely become emasculated. And a lot of guys think that's normal. They think that, I need to clock in every time I get home, every time I leave. I need to phone up my missus and tell her that, I'll be home at 6 o'clock tonight, this evening, and I'm going to be buying you some roses, I'm going to be buying you some chocolates. And then she's just on the phone just saying, yeah, that's the least you can do. Talk about getting disrespected. I've heard it with my own ears. Certain times guys are saying XYZ to the women on the phone. And then the woman's just completely disrespecting them. So I'll give you guys one real life scenario. So I was working at a company called Novartis. So it's a pharmaceutical company. And there was 2 security officers. So me, Eunice, and our supervisor called Bruno. Now this guy here, he was Portuguese, right? and me and Eunice, we were both at the reception, and Bruno came over to us. So Eunice is Ghanaian, I'm Pakistani, and then Bruno is Portuguese. Now his missus was having a back and forth with him on the phone. So she was swearing at him in Portuguese, but then she was talking in English as well at the same time. So English and Portuguese. And me and Eunice were just stood there thinking, this guy here is just getting completely disrespected. Now, you know what the argument was over? You guys are going to find this funny. Now, she had phoned him to say that there was some paint that was spilt on the sofa. And then Bruno's bag was on top of it. And she was just going crazy over it. And he was saying, no, it wasn't me. I didn't spill no paint. XYZ. And then later on, they found out that it wasn't Bruno. It was his son. Yeah, his son had put the bag on top of the sofa in order to cover up the paint. Yeah, talk about getting disrespected, and she didn't apologize for that. So imagine just getting humiliated in front of your work colleagues, getting disrespected, and you're just gonna have to eat that. You know, that's what's happening with a bunch of guys in today's society. You know, they think that's normal. That ain't normal. So, final point is exit. Now, the beta simps, once they're rinsed of their assets, their time, their efforts, rinsed of all their money, and so on. And then these women here chuck them to the side of the curb. You slap them with a divorce. You know, so just know, you don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to happen eventually. You know, a lot of these guys, they're not even ready for that. They're thinking that this woman here is going to stay with them forever. You know, these women here, they've got ulterior motives. They've got other agendas. But at the same time, it goes back to the men. The men are choosing to put themselves in this position. They're choosing to set themselves up for failure. You know, and then these guys here end up jumping to the other extreme then. When they start to hate women. They start to think that all women are promiscuous. All women are evil. Because of what? Their own wrongdoings. Because of their own shortcomings. That's what the issue is. So, just to wrap up. Disrespect. Now, there's a bunch of guys in today's time who are getting disrespected by their partners, by their wives, girlfriends, you name it, on a day-to-day basis. Getting completely emasculated. You know, there's a thin line between a disagreement and disrespect. A thin line between love and hate. The next one after that was ATM. Guys in today's time are comfortable getting treated as ATM machines. They don't have a woman falling in love with who they are as a man. They're getting these women to fall in love with the external BS. So money, status, looks, and all of these things. Superficial. And then when things become a bit difficult, when they go through a rough patch, when they're down and out, that's when they crumble. That's when the women end up exiting out. Because of what? Because they were leading with their wallet. That's why you should never lead with your wallet with a woman. Because there's always going to be somebody else out there who's richer than you. Somebody else out there who's got more money than you, more status, and so on. So you can't be leading with those things there. Next one after that was power. Right now, women want power in relationships. They don't want to go near the guys who have power over themselves. Because those guys have got set standards. They're going to hold these women accountable. These women here, they don't want to hold themselves accountable. They don't want to be held accountable by someone else. So they'd rather just get the beta simp, the clueless fool, just abuse him. They don't care about anything else. Just literally power, control. And then after that, when she's bored with him, then she'll chuck him to the side of the curb. And then the final point was exit. Eventually, all these relationships fizzle out. When the woman completely has no respect for the guy anymore. She'll just strip him of all his assets, all his power. And then she'll go find somebody else and do the same thing. So I hope that makes sense, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.